He graduated top of his class. He wore the white coat with pride. He took the same oath every doctor takes. First, do no harm. But behind that calm, confident smile was a man who got a quiet thrill from watching people suffer. His colleagues trusted him. His patients trusted him completely. They had no reason not to. He was educated, well-spoken, respected. And one by one, under his care, they started dying. Quietly, mysteriously, in hospital beds where they were supposed to be getting better, not worse. By the time anyone connected the dots, he had already moved hospitals. New city, new coworkers, new unsuspecting victims. This is the story of a man who turned the one place you're supposed to feel safest, a hospital, into a hunting ground. And the terrifying part isn't just what he did. It's how long the system allowed him to keep doing it. To understand how this happened, we have to go back to the beginning. Because nothing about his early life screamed killer. He was sharp, disciplined, the kind of student professors remembered by name. He tore through pre-med coursework, aced every exam that mattered, and walked into medical school carrying the kind of quiet promise that made people say, this one is going to save lives. But a few people who looked closely noticed something else. A strange fixation with death and disaster. A habit of collecting news clippings about poisonings, mass casualties, and unexplained deaths. Classmates chalked it up to dark humor, the kind med students use to cope with the pressure. Professors saw ambition. Nobody saw danger. He wanted to be the person in the room who decided whether someone lived or died. And in the most twisted way imaginable, he eventually got exactly that. His residency should have been the proving ground for a bright career. Instead, it became the first crime scene nobody recognized as one. Nurses started noticing a disturbing pattern. Patients who were stable, recovering, expected to walk out of the hospital in days, would suddenly crash without warning. Seizures, cardiac arrest, respiratory failure, and almost every time, he happened to be the one nearby, the one who found them, the one first on the scene. One night nurse later claimed she watched him inject something into an IV bag that had no business being there. She reported it immediately, expecting action. Nothing happened. The hospital, more afraid of a lawsuit than a killer, quietly let him resign, with a spotless record and a glowing letter of recommendation to take with him. That single decision, made to protect a hospital's reputation, would end up costing lives for years to come. With that clean record in hand, he simply moved on. New city, new hospital, new patients who had absolutely no idea who was walking into their room that night. And the pattern repeated, almost identically. Patients recovering from routine, low-risk procedures would suddenly collapse. Emergency codes were being called in the dead of night, far more often than statistically possible. Survivors, the lucky few, later described a strange metallic taste in their IV line or medication, moments before they became violently, inexplicably ill. Investigators would eventually learn he wasn't just negligent, he was experimenting, carefully calibrating how much of a substance a body could take before it failed, testing the edges of human tolerance like it was a science project. Some patients survived. Many did not. Coworkers began to talk quietly among themselves. A pattern like this doesn't stay buried forever. Not when it keeps happening on the same shifts, in the same wing, around the same calm, unbothered man. It took a small group of brave nurses and doctors, people willing to risk their own careers, to finally force a real investigation. They quietly compiled patient records, cross-referenced shift schedules against every unexplained death
and near death on the ward. And they found the thread hospital administrators had spent years ignoring. Every suspicious incident happened when he was on duty. Every single time, without exception.
Once detectives got involved, everything accelerated. Old toxicology reports were reopened and retested with more advanced methods. And what they found stunned even seasoned investigators. Trace levels of substances that had absolutely no medical reason to be in these patients' bloodstreams. Substances that do not appear in a human body by accident. Piece by piece, a picture too horrifying to ignore began to form. A doctor who wasn't just failing to save lives, he was ending them, deliberately, methodically, and hiding behind medical jargon that made murder look like misfortune. When police finally moved in, it wasn't dramatic. No chase, no struggle, just a quiet knock at the door of a man who had spent years hiding in plain sight, protected by the one thing almost nobody questions: a white coat and a medical degree. He denied everything, of course. Poised, composed, almost offended by the accusation, as if the very idea was beneath him. That same unshakable calm that had fooled colleagues and hospital boards for years nearly worked on investigators too. But this time, the evidence didn't lie. Toxicology results, shift timelines that lined up with mathematical precision, testimonies from nurses who had quietly watched him for years, too afraid to speak up until now. Piece by piece, the case against him became airtight and undeniable. The trial revealed the true scale of what had happened. Patients who died in the one place meant to protect them. Families who had spent years believing their loved ones simply didn't make it, never once suspecting the truth. Prosecutors laid out a chilling psychological profile. A man not driven by rage or desperation, but by control, by the quiet power of deciding, in secret, who lived and who didn't. Former colleagues testified about his eerie calm during emergencies, how he never seemed rattled, never seemed to grieve alongside grieving families, only disturbingly satisfied. When the verdict finally came down, it barely felt like enough. No sentence could undo what he had taken from so many families. But at the very least, he could never put on that white coat again. What makes this case so disturbing isn't only what he did, it's how long the system let him keep doing it. Warning signs dismissed, nurse reports quietly shredded to avoid lawsuits, a reputation protected at the direct cost of human lives. It's a chilling reminder that trust, the very foundation healthcare is built on, can be exploited by exactly the people we're taught never to question. The ones in white coats. The ones we're told to trust completely, without hesitation. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't a stranger lurking in the dark. It's the one holding the syringe, smiling gently, telling you everything is going to be okay. If this story disturbed you as much as it disturbed us, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because true evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it wears a white coat.